Hello, Picasso. Hello, my lovely ladies. Hello, Valentine. You're coming to help me milk the cow today, are you? Huh? Hi, welcome to our homestead. So today I thought I'd show you a little bit about how we milk our cow. We hand milk all of our cows. And sometimes people are just a little self-conscious about how to get started in the process. First, it's really important that everything is very clean. Some people have their own milking stall. We don't at the moment, but we make sure that everything is cleaned up and ready to go for our milking. We wash her udders really well. We make sure there's no poop or hay or any debris around her when we're about to start milking. We wash her down really well, and before and after each milking session, we will put some iodine to help prevent any bacteria or mastitis from getting into her nipples, her teats, or the milk in the future. So a lot of people just don't know how to get started with milking, and one of the ways you can is by understanding your hands act very similar to a baby calf. So it's not just a squeezing. You're going to want to get your hands in like fists a little bit, and it's a kind of bunting like a baby calf would do when they are milking, when they're nursing their mother. So you're going to try to get your fist up, just bunting a little, not punching, but just moving up and down, and you're going to tug like a baby calf would do and squeeze at the same time in a very fluid motion like this. And don't worry, sometimes your milk does get kicked over. Little girl here is a very gentle cow, and she rarely moves her feet. She's pretty easygoing. One of the things we do while we are milking is we will make sure she has plenty of hay at least a half an hour before she is milked, or at least a half an hour before you give her any grain. You do give them milking grain as well. And why it's important to give them hay before is that cows have many chambers in their stomach, right? And if you give them grain before on an empty stomach, before you give them any other hay or anything like that, you're essentially feeding the birds, as they say. So what I do as well as when about part way through, you don't have to do this. I keep a pot beside me with a cover that I can continually pour milk into so that it doesn't get, if the pot gets knocked over, at least I have some of the milk saved. Hello girl, move over a little bit, please. Okay, can you not she's sticking her gut out so far. Move over. Move over, please. A little bit. Thank you. Okay. Okay. So as I was saying, it's really important that you give grain, if you give milking grain, at least a half an hour after you've given them hay. Otherwise, the grain goes right to the stomach. That is very similar to ours. They have many different chambers, but they do have a stomach that is very similar to ours, and it will just go there and get digested immediately, and they don't even get the benefit of the grain. And as we know, milking grain is a little more expensive, so you definitely don't want to waste that or the nutrients that they will get from it. Okay, so you see how I'm moving my hands up and down and tugging and a kind of bunting at the same time. That's how you really want to do it. Okay. She's getting a little kick. So after we get the milk, after I'm done, you want to make sure that there's nothing left in any of the 4 chambers of the udder. So that there's like, you're squeezing, you're tugging, and nothing will come out. And I will say there's like waves during milking where the milk will flow really rapidly. She'll have let down, and then it'll kind of ease up a bit. You can try another teat or two while you are waiting for that that particular chamber to get some letdown again, just make sure that before you go, you've really emptied every udder, every chamber of the udder, because if not, you are essentially telling the udder, don't make so much milk. So the more you nurse, you should ask for a little bit more, as they say at the end. So if there's nothing left, tug a little bit longer, ask the udder for a little bit more, and it will keep your milk supply in high production. Now, little girl is at more towards the end of her milk production right now. She is on, when we purchased her about a month and a half ago, she was already on day, I think, 256 of milk production, and that's really getting towards the end. But we plan on drying her off at some point and getting her pregnant, and we'll have some more milk from her next year, as well as possibly getting another milk cow later on this fall, if possible, after our 9th baby comes. So there's a lot of things coming to our homestead this year, and we're just trying to be prepared for them. Okay. Chewing the cud, old girl. You chewing the cud? With your bestie? You and Alice having a girl date? Yeah. So Jerseys have 2 long teats in the front and 2 much shorter teats that are harder to get at in the back. It does make it a little bit harder to milk, but Jerseys really do give the richest, most delicious creamy milk. So, let's have some chickens in here. Anyways, the back 2 teats are not the best for milking compared to the front 2, but you really have to drain them both if you want all the milk. Okay, so I'm all done milking her, and now she's gonna get her grain. Sometimes we've given her grain during milking. We usually give her some bread, actually, as a little extra treat during milking. And then she gets her grain at the end, and it helps to boost her production for milk for the next session. So she's gonna get that now. She's always very enthusiastic to get her grain. Okay, so she's gonna get her grain now. Hey, what's this? Is this your most favorite? And she's up. Now, Sweet Hannah does not get any milking grain, but she does get treats. She gets bread and apples. Not too many, but she gets some other delicious veggies she does love, and some fruit, which is great. Our sweet girl. I don't mind her ribs, because I think a lot of people, including me, when I first saw Jerseys, were really concerned about why they look so bony in their structure. That's just the structure of a Jersey. She eats a ton, and you can ask any milking Jersey farmer and they will say the same thing. This is just the structure of Jersey cows. You can see their hips, their hip bones stick out, and you can see the ribs, but as you can see, she has a nice belly too. Well, you have a lot to say. A lot to say today. One thing we do is spray, just for an example, okay? And I actually usually take a cloth and just make sure they all got really saturated. And if I didn't explain, this is just iodine, and it helps to keep out any bacteria until the next milking session, when she gets a good sterile wipe down on her udders. So we've also been using this great bag balm. This is for her udder, obviously, and it just helps if they have any little dry areas to prevent it from cracking, or if they are cracked, they shouldn't be too cracked and bleeding if you put this on, but it just helps to prevent cracking and bleeding, which is really good. It's a really nice, it's essentially similar to what nursing mothers will use on their nipples when we're breastfeeding. It's probably so natural that we could actually use this. But anyways, this is great for cows' udders. I highly recommend it. So how we sterilize our cows' udders before is I just take a pot of very hot soapy water, dish soap is fine, mixed with vinegar, and I really wash down her udder about 5 times, including her teats, to make sure that there is nothing left except her beautiful milky white udder before I start milking her. As well, before you start milking, you're going to want to take a few good squirts out of each teat to make sure you get rid of the milk plug that is there. That's just a natural buildup of milk from the last session. And you're going to want to give a few squirts so that just doesn't go in your milk. It's more full of bacteria, and it just kind of gets it nice and clean and gives way to the new fresh milk. So one thing is also a way that we protect our milk while we're in here is I carry that milk pot with the cover. So every time I start to get a good amount of milk, I just pour it in there and I close the cover so no little dusty hay bits or anything gets in the milk. I try to keep as many animals like chickens and sheep, etc., out of our barn from, wandering in and being curious what I'm doing or looking for some spare grain. I try to keep them out of the barn when I'm milking, just so they don't pick up on grain or come over. Sometimes they would try to tap the milk bucket or something or drop something in. We definitely don't want that. We want to keep it as sterile and clean as we possibly can. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for joining me for milking our cow today. And I hope you learned a few things. There are so many ways that you can go about doing this. I know a lot of homesteaders today will have this very fancy, very sterile, all stainless steel building with like ceramic floor for their cow to come in and go up a little ramp, and then they just hook them up to a milking machine and they get milked, and that's fine. If that works for you, that's great. But Eva and I are very rudimentary. We're very old-fashioned, and we prefer to hand milk our cow in our barn right now because that's what we have. And we are building another milk barn at the moment. But my husband's still healing from his back accident last fall, and he's preparing for a very intense fishing season. So that will probably get finished more likely fall this year. But in the meantime, we just make sure things are really clean in the barn around our cow. When we're about to milk her, we make sure that her udder is very, very clean, that our hands are very clean and washed, sterilized before we even touch her udder. And that each time after we're done milking her, we sterilize and clean everything. We put the iodine on her bag balm and make sure that there's nothing lingering. She gets a really good clean before and after each session so that there's nothing that could ever get in our milk. And then we filter our milk once we're in the house. So yes, it is raw. Yes, it is delicious, but it is very clean. And yeah, it's been a great time having you with me. Thanks for joining me today. And I hope you enjoyed watching me milk our milk cow and learning a few things about how easy it is. It really is very simple, and it's one of the most delicious rewards that you could ever have on a homestead. So thanks for joining me today, guys. Have a great day.